Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode, oh my god, I can't remember. I am Janus dead.
I'm Jameson dead.
And I'm Joyous dead.
I totally can't remember, and I'm going to leave it that way.
That's okay. I mean, I feel like, we've done so many that it just kind of rolls all together. And I feel like we've been doing this for years and years and years.
Right. And
if you click on the podcast, then you'll see what episode it is. We have no idea.
Right. And the funny part is because we took a week off, I think that's why I'm even more out of the loop, which is funny in and of itself. So this would be episode 113. I finally looked it up.
All right, let's rock. 113.
All right, so episode 113. We're going to start this case off with a quote from the killer we're going to be discussing. So it's not much of a teaser, yet in many ways it's going to tell you the entire story in 3 sentences.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's so this asshole, we're going to call him an asshole, wrote his own autobiography while in prison.
Okay, weirdo.
Yeah, while in prison. He was actually writing it out and giving it to a guard, and the guard was the one who tried to get it published, but it eventually ended up somewhere, which we'll get to at the end of the whole story. But that's where this quote comes from. So this quote goes, and I quote, "In my lifetime, I have murdered 21 human beings. I have committed thousands of burglaries, robberies, larcenies, arsons, and last but not least, I have committed sodomy on more than 1,000 male human beings."
Holy hell.
What the fuck?
"For all these things, I am not the least bit sorry. I have no conscience, so that does not worry me." Unquote.
Oh, horrible.
All right, so we don't even have to do the case. We already know it.
Yeah, we don't have to go any further. That's it. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, this is the case of Carl Panzram. So in the true
crime, of course, with a last name like that, it just makes it even worse.
Don't insult every Panzram on the planet, man.
No.
Oh, man. No, so this is one of those cases that if you're in the true crime community, you know the name, you're familiar with it. It could have been a for Joyous's information, but I don't think it's that famous, so we're just going to do it as a normal case. And since we took a week off, I figure let's come in swinging, and we'll go from there. Oh, and I should offer an additional trigger warning. Even though we just kind of mentioned it, we will be discussing a lot of sexual assault. That's going to be a big part of this. So, Carl Panzram was born on June 28th, 1891.
Holy crap.
Yeah, on a farm near East Grand Forks, Minnesota. He was the 6th of 7 children born to East Prussian immigrants Johann and Matilda Elizabeth. Panzram and his 6 siblings were made to work the family farm from a very young age until the state finally introduced truancy laws, and those came into effect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, can you imagine, like, he was born before there were laws protecting children and making them go to school. Like, what the
That's
fuck?
wild.
So his parents got angry that their children had to go to school every day. So they forced the children to work in the fields throughout the night instead.
Holy shit.
Now, Panzram later reported that he received roughly 2 hours of sleep a night before he would have to get up and go to school again.
Oh, that's not okay.
It's so fucked up. His parents being the amazing parents of the year right here. The punishments in this household ranged from being bound by chains
What?
to being starved. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Awful. Okay, this is so deeply abusive.
This is bad. And again, late 1800s into the early 1900s, and we just discussed the fact that laws when he was born didn't even make kids go to school, so there's no protections in place here. Which is crazy that this wasn't something that just, naturally formed in law. Or maybe they just assumed people were going to be good to their children. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Children are property.
And they were back then. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Panzram later reflected on his early childhood with the sentiment that he felt like that he was not like other children. By the age of 5, he claimed that he was both a liar and a thief, and he recalled that he became meaner as he grew older. Now, his father abandoned
Can't blame him in that household.
Hell no. I mean, I would have been angry and lashing out too. And this is one of those questions of nature versus nurture, because we wouldn't know what was naturally him because the nurture part hit him right off the bat.
Right.
So his father abandoned the family when he was only 7 years old. And eventually 4 of his 5 older brothers left as well, and the other one of them had drowned.
Oh my God.
So Panzram had run-ins with the law starting in 1899 at the age of 8. He was charged in a juvenile court for being drunk and disorderly.
Holy crap.
At 8 years old. And
that's actually like insane.
And when he was 11 in 1903, he was arrested again and jailed for being drunk and incorrigible. Which, what? I know, right? I thought the same thing. I was like, isn't that just the same as disorderly? But maybe belligerent as well. I don't know.
So brain damage as well from all this drinking.
Right? So not long after this second arrest, Panzram stole cake, apples, and a gun from a neighbor's home. And
wow, that really escalated.
Yeah, but he didn't get very far. And he was sent in October of 1903. His mother sent him to Minnesota, to the Minnesota State Training School, which was supposed to be like a reform school. Mm-hmm. There, he was repeatedly beaten, tortured, and raped by staff members.
Oh my God.
Awful. I mean, I've heard of things like that happening at those reform schools. They're like, fuck these kids.
Yeah, and exactly. And those type of schools didn't have, there were no protections because they were just like, well, these kids deserve it kind of thing, and never really looked into the abuses. So Panzram apparently hated this school so much that he decided to burn it down on July 7th, 1905. He was
okay, I'm going to cheer him on for that one. Kill your abusers.
But yeah. So he actually got away with it, and when they questioned him, they bought his story. He was never actually held accountable for that, which is even better.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Now, at the age of 14, he actually attempted to kill a Lutheran cleric with a revolver.
Oh, shit.
So this was a teacher at a reform school. It's not known if it was the same one he burned down or not, because this is where one of those, like, some reports say this and some reports say that. So he apparently got into a literal physical scuffle with this teacher. And at some point, Panzram was going for the gun. One report says the gun fell from his pants before he had control of it, and that the pastor was able to kind of kick it out of his reach before subduing him. And another report says that he got the gun out and pulled the trigger, but it wasn't loaded. So either way, he failed to kill this guy, which is probably good. But if it was abusive as he claims, maybe it wasn't good. I don't know. But after that, Panzram ran away and decided to live on the streets. Now, this is something, what he does next is something that only could have happened during the early 1900s. He was traveling across the country by hopping trains.
Wow, that's so vintage.
Right? Like, I love those old school movies where someone's chasing after the train and jumping on. That's literally what he was doing and how he was traveling.
We used to have trains in this country.
We still do in most of the rest of the country. Like, it's up, the Northeast doesn't have as many, but there's the trains going through the central part of the U.S. There are times that you're literally sitting at a train crossing with the road blocked for like a half an hour.
This is true, but they don't do what they used to, which is go to every
Oh
every
yeah.
town, and you could get on a railroad and you could travel across the country from like your random ass place in Kansas.
Not as many, you're right. Because now it's all just about moving stuff.
Yeah, it's all just cargo. Like people trains are for the most part gone, and when they exist, they suck ass. That's all
Although
I care a lot about trains. I am a little autistic.
So I've heard that there is one in particular that goes up through the northern part of the Midwest all the way into the Northwest. There's one train that I've heard is really amazing and people recommend it. But other than that, you're right. I don't hear that ever.
Yeah, that's a dream trip for me. It's a like a sleeper train, and you like go through really beautiful landscapes and like national parks. It's so cool.
Yeah, maybe
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like something I'd like to do. So
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
So while doing this, Panzram at one point met a group of homeless men, and they were in a train car that wasn't as nice as the one that he had been staying in. And he literally said to these men, "Hey, I've been living in this one. It's warmer, it's got hay, it's more comfortable." So these men move over to this train car with him, and once the train was moving and they were kind of all stuck there, these men brutally took advantage of him and sexually assaulted him.
That's awful.
It was around this time that Panzram basically decided, as he's getting old in his older teens, that he is no longer going to be the victim of men like that.
Oh, that's tough.
So in the summer of 1906, Panzram was arrested for burglary in Butte, Montana, and sentenced to 1 year's imprisonment at the Montana State Reform School in Miles City. There, after a guard punished him, he assaulted and critically injured the man with a wooden board.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
Can't really blame him. He's probably losing his mind at this point, being abused so much.
Right, and yeah, exactly. He's just fucking done with it. As punishment, Panzram had to spend time in solitary confinement. The following year, Panzram and a fellow inmate named James Benson escaped from that school, and they stole guns in the city of Terry, Montana. In the coming weeks, Panzram and Benson repeatedly broke into stores and burned down buildings, especially churches, in acts of arson.
So he's just like, fuck the world.
Right, and I didn't note it earlier, but a lot of times these reform schools are trying to indoctrinate the students into, like, religion. So he's tying the two together. So when he's burning churches, he's going after the people he feels hurt him.
Yep.
So these two separated in Fargo, North Dakota. And in 1907, after getting drunk at a saloon in Helena, Montana, Panzram went and enlisted in the U.S. Army and was assigned to the 6th Infantry at Fort William Henry Harrison. He refused to take orders from officers and was generally insubordinate. He was convicted of larceny for stealing $80 worth of supplies, and he had to serve a prison sentence at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Now,
damn.
Yeah, this is not a prison you want to go to. This is where, like, the kind of shit where you make big rocks into little rocks. Right?
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's got that reputation. And it's here that he gets the muscle and the strength now to be able to basically do whatever the fuck he wants to somebody. Whereas before he was small and young and people could take advantage of him, now he's becoming kind of this monstrous, muscular guy.
So dangerous, I guess, to be giving inmates this kind of work because you're literally strengthening them.
Exactly. So the interesting thing about this particular sentence that he got is at the time, William Taft was the U.S. Secretary of War, and he officially approved Panzram's sentence. And this is
no kidding.
And this is something Panzram's never going to forget.
The president is after me.
Well, at the time, he was only the U.S. Secretary of War. He will be president later, right? So Panzram later claimed that while he had been a rotten egg before being imprisoned at Leavenworth, any shred of goodness that was left in him was smashed out during that time. So he was eventually released and given a dishonorable discharge from the military, and Panzram basically just went out and resumed his criminal activities. He started stealing items that ranged from bicycles to yachts. Like,
Holy crap.
literally stealing yachts, like boats. It's fucking crazy. He was caught multiple times and imprisoned each time. But whenever he was incarcerated, he just frequently attacked the guards and refused to follow orders. And guards retaliated against him, subjecting him to beatings and other punishments.
At that point, he'd probably been beaten so many times that he probably didn't even feel it.
Exactly. At this point, he's just like, bring it on, fuckers, right?
Yeah, he's probably just dissociating. It doesn't matter.
In his autobiography, Panzram wrote that he was rage personified and that he would often rape men that he robbed.
Jesus.
He was noted for his large stature and great physical strength due to all those years at Leavenworth, which I mentioned, and this aided him in overpowering most men. But most of the time, what he did was engaged in vandalism and arson. By his own admission, one of the few times Panzram did not engage in criminal activities was when he was employed as a strike breaker against union employees. Now,
wow. This guy's fucking every kind of shitty. But I guess that's finding your like lawful way to be a shitty person.
Yeah,
right?
Like I can lawfully beat the fuck out of somebody. Yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah, so like you suck, you're a scab, but I'm like, oh, you know what? At least there's an outlet for that.
Right? It's so funny. On one occasion, he tried to sign on board as a ship steward on an Army transport vessel, but he was discharged from that ship after he was reported to be intoxicated. Now, the last thing he stole before he was caught and imprisoned again was a radio, which at the time must have been like a new thing.
I was going to say, that must have been a high-value item at that time.
Yeah, it must have been, because it's weird to me. But so he claims in his autobiography that so he was caught for that and imprisoned again. And he claims in his autobiography that after escaping from a chain gang in Rusk, Texas, he went into Mexico, and in 1910 he tried to enlist in the Federales. So he tried to become Mexican military, which is a riot.
Damn. That is hilarious. Go off.
He then took a train to Del Rio, Texas, and got off in a small town about 50 to 100 miles east of El Paso. He later claimed that he abducted, assaulted, and strangled a man about a mile from the town and stole $35 from him.
Ugh.
Yeah.
You go through all that for $35. I mean,
at the time, that's probably a couple $100. Yeah. In the summer of 1911, Panzram started going by the alias Jefferson Davis, and he was arrested in Fresno.
Oh, I've heard that name.
And he was arrested in Fresno, California for stealing a bike. He was sentenced.
Damn, this guy. He just ain't stopping. He just loves to steal and get caught.
He just doesn't give a shit. That's what this guy's all about. So he was sentenced to 6 months in the county jail, but escaped after only 30 days. And I gotta say, I want to know how shitty prisons were back then, that he's escaping.
I want to know how he made it out of a chain gang. Like, that's insane.
Have you never seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh, I have, but like,
who knows?
Reality versus.
I know. Maybe he dragged their bodies behind him. I don't know. This dude's huge. So Panzram later claimed that after this escape, while riding in a boxcar in California, he disarmed a man with a weapon, and that he called either a railway detective or a railway brakeman. He then forced this man to rape a homeless man at gunpoint.
What the
Oh my God.
Before he threw them both off the train.
Holy
crap. Shit.
This guy's out of his fucking mind.
Literally.
He then proceeded to Oregon, where he started living as a logger. Panzram admitted that years later, that once while hiding in a bordello, his wallet was stolen and he was infected with gonorrhea.
Well, unsurprising.
Well, my thing about the gonorrhea thing is that's like the worst thing to give a guy who's going out there raping people.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right?
Well, probably syphilis might be worse, but you know what? Yeah,
right.
Yes.
You're right, because at least gonorrhea can be treated quickly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1913, Panzram started going by the alias of Jack Allen, and he was arrested in Dalles, Oregon. I don't think it's Dallas because it's an ES at the end, but Dalles, Oregon, for highway robbery, assault, and sodomy.
Now, what does highway robbery literally mean?
That's usually when you're standing you're blocking when people are coming, because this is before cars, right? Or maybe at the start of cars. So you're literally standing there waiting for people to come up to you in their wagon or their vehicle, and you have the weapon out and you just take everything they have.
Okay, because I'm like, people always say that like as a turn of phrase. They're like, "Oh my God, it was highway robbery," meaning, okay,
yeah, so
basically took all of your shit, and it was like nothing you could do.
Yeah, you're on the road, you have nowhere else to go, and they take everything you have. Exactly.
Damn! Wow, I learned something today.
So he broke out of jail after 2 months.
All right, enough with the breaking out. Like, come on.
He's pretty good at this.
He's very good at this because it's not going to stop.
No, I don't think he's good at it at all. I think that it's the jail system.
Yeah, that
right,
too.
I think these jails make it real easy to escape.
So he was later arrested in Harrison, Idaho, but he escaped again from their jail. He was arrested again in Chinook, Montana, and sentenced to 1 year in prison for burglary on April 27th, 1913. He escaped from there in November of that year.
Ain't nothing stopping him at this point.
Within a week of that, he was arrested for burglary in Three Forks, giving the name Jeff Rhodes. And this is before they can check any of this shit, so they don't even know who they have.
I was going to say, imagine
fair.
if they were able to talk and like they could see his rap sheet.
Right? They have no idea. As long as he gives them another name, they don't know. That's the crazy part. So
and he's committing crimes like so all over the place. Like, how would they even?
Right. He's everywhere. He's just, the thing he is more than anything else, I think, is a thief. But then you have rapist and murderer, you know? So he was incarcerated at a place called Deer Lodge for an additional year. And by his own account, he repeatedly sodomized people while he was in prison.
Awful.
Panzram was released on March 3rd, 1915. They gave him a new suit of clothing, $5, and a ticket to the next town that was 6 miles away. He then started riding the rails again, jumping trains, through Washington State, Idaho, Nebraska, and South Dakota. On June 1st of that year, he burglarized a house in Astoria, Oregon, where he was soon arrested for attempting to sell the items that he stole.
Yeah, if you do that too quick, you're gonna get caught.
So he was arrested under the name of Jeff Baldwin and sentenced to 7 years in prison to be served at the Oregon State Penitentiary in Salem, where he was taken on June 24th, 1915. Now, the warden there, a man named Harry Minto, believed in harsh punishments of inmates, including beatings and isolation, among other disciplinary measures. Panzram later stated that he swore he would never do the 7 years, and he defied the warden and the officers to make him do it.
Damn.
Can you imagine? I'm just imagine being a guard, and there's this big motherfucker who is just never going to cooperate. Like, what do you do?
Truly.
So that year, Panzram helped a fellow inmate named Otto Hooker escape from the prison. While
this guy's last name is Hooker?
Yep.
That rocks.
Could you imagine being the guy's mother? He's like, yeah, my mother's a hooker.
That rocks.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that, yeah. While attempting to evade capture, Hooker actually killed the warden.
Oh my God.
So this event marked Panzram's first known involvement in a murder as an accessory before the fact. Now, his prison record, which also noted his aliases as Jeff Rhodes and Jefferson Davis, he falsely gave his age as 30 and his birthplace as Alabama. So he's just really making shit up to keep him confused, which is awesome for him.
Yeah, it's working for him.
So Panzram was disciplined several times at Salem, including a 61-day confinement in solitary confinement, before he escaped on September 18th, 1917.
He's escaping from solitary, which is so fucking crazy.
It's fucking amazing. In a lot of ways, it's impressive, you know? After 2 shootouts in which he attempted to shoot Chief Deputy Sheriff Jeffrey Fromm, Panzram was recaptured and returned to the prison. On May 12th, 1918, he escaped again by sawing through the bars of his cell and caught a train heading east. Yeah.
Damn.
So he even escapes in different ways, which is awesome for him. I have to say, I'm a little impressed by the guy. What he did.
I mean, we talk about a lot of fucking idiots around here, so.
Right. And what he did was horrendous. And we haven't even gotten to the worst of it yet. But so the things he did was fucking awful. And he doesn't deserve to be liked in any way, shape, or form. But some of what he did, the multiple escapes, kind of impressed me. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the ways that he's done it, like, that's impressive.
So he began going by the name of John O'Leary, and he shaved off his facial hair to kind of help change his appearance. Now, Panzram would never return to the Pacific Northwest. So he's done with that whole part of the country. So he allegedly ended up in New York City and got an ID card as a seaman, and he sailed on the steamship the James S. Whitney to Panama. There, he tried to steal a small boat with the help of a drunken sailor who killed everyone on board and was arrested.
Holy shit.
Now, my take on this is I think Panzram killed everybody and fucked this guy over. But
Probably.
But I don't really know, you know. Now, Panzram
we don't.
Right, and Panzram wasn't arrested. So he traveled to Peru where he worked in a copper mine. From there,
this guy can't track him.
You can't, and that's the best part. He's all over not just the country, the world, and I don't even know how the fuck he's getting into all these places. Because after that, he goes to Chile, Port Arthur, Texas, London, Edinburgh, Paris, and Hamburg, Germany.
Holy crap, he is really all over the place.
Everywhere. The crazy part is, come 1920, he's back in Newport, Rhode Island, where he committed a robbery.
Really? After going all those places, he goes back there.
He comes to New England. Yep. So on September 16th, 1920, Panzram broke into the mansion of William Taft.
All coming back around.
At this point, Taft is now a former president, and Panzram obviously targeted this mansion because of what had happened before. And while there, he stole a large amount of jewelry and U.S. bonds, as well as Taft's Colt M1911 .45 caliber handgun.
Damn.
Now, according to reports, the amount of jewelry he stole was in the ballpark of $40,000.
Holy hell.
But Taft insists that wasn't the amount. But
he said it was more? Or?
No, that it was less. He tried to downplay it.
Oh. Interesting.
So using Taft's stolen money, Panzram went out and bought a sailing yacht. It was called the Akista. And he embarked on an 8-year-long murder spree using that boat.
Oh my God.
Sailing south to New York, for 3 months, Panzram lured sailors away from port bars onto the yacht, where he got them drunk before he raped them and murdered them using Taft's stolen gun.
Holy fuck. That's awful.
He then subsequently dumped their bodies near Execution Rocks Light in the Long Island Sound, which is a terrible name for a place, and he dumped them in the perfect spot, I guess. So Panzram later claimed that he killed 10 men in this manner.
Holy crap.
Now, the sailor murders ended only after the Akista ran aground and sank near Atlantic City, New Jersey, during which his last 2 potential victims escaped. On October 26, Panzram was arrested in Stamford, Connecticut for burglary and possession of a loaded handgun. In 1921, he served 6 months in a jail in Bridgeport, Connecticut. After being released, because they have no idea what this guy's actually done, he somehow catches a ship and goes to South Africa. And he lands.
What the hell?
It's crazy.
What?
It's crazy. By late 1921, Panzram was a foreman of an oil rig in Angola. But he
what?
Yeah, it's crazy. He's everywhere.
This man has lived 100 men's lives.
Right? He later burned down the oil rig out of spitefulness. He literally just got fed up with it and burned the fucking thing down.
That's what he does.
Then, and this is, I'm going to give everyone a trigger warning here. If as a listener, if you need to skip ahead because you really don't want to hear the most awful part of this, you skip ahead about a minute or two because this part is fucked.
Uh-oh.
Panzram then decides that he wants a virgin girl.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
He paid an Angola family 80 escudos, or $8, in exchange for their 12-year-old daughter.
Oh, God.
He raped her in his shack that night, but then returned her to her family, demanding his money back because he said the girl wasn't a virgin.
What the fuck?
The family then gave him their 8-year-old girl.
Oh, God.
Who he took back to his shack and raped.
What the fuck?
He then brought her back because he said the 8-year-old wasn't a virgin either.
Oh, God.
That is so deeply disgusting.
Yeah. By far the worst part of this case. But from there...
That's awful.
From there, he then claims that he went out and snatched up a young Angolan boy about 11 or 12 years old and raped and killed him, saying, quote, "His brains were coming out of his ears when I left him, and he will never be any deader," unquote.
Oh.
That's not something to brag about. Like, what the hell?
That's beyond fucked right there.
Ugh.
He also claimed that at this point he hired a boat full of rowers, like 6 people to row this boat, because he wanted to go out crocodile hunting. And while they were out there, he took a Luger pistol where he shot all 6 men and dumped their bodies into the water to feed the crocodiles.
Yeah. He's got to get some kind of sick enjoyment out of this. Like, what the hell?
I'm telling you, this guy's fucked. So then he returns to the U.S. just as you do, right?
As one does.
He then goes to Salem, Massachusetts, where he raped and killed 2 small boys, beating one to death with a rock on July 18th, 1922, and strangling the other later that year in New Haven, Connecticut.
Awful.
After his murder spree in Salem, Panzram worked as a night watchman in Yonkers, New York, north of Manhattan, at a mill factory. He then goes to Providence, Rhode Island, where he stole a yawl and sailed to New Haven, seeking victims to rob and rape and boats to steal. In June of 1923, in New Rochelle, New York, Panzram stole a yacht belonging to the local police chief.
Oh, now he's getting
Damn.
From there, he picks up a 15-year-old boy named George Wallowson and promised him a job on the boat, but instead began sodomizing him. On June 27th, on the river near Kingston, New York, Panzram claimed he picked up a man, but believing the man was going to attempt to rob him, he used the .38 caliber pistol that he had stolen from the yacht to kill this man. Panzram then threw his body in the river. On June 28th, Panzram and George docked at Poughkeepsie, New York. Panzram stole $1,000 worth of fishing nets. And then at Newburgh, George, the young boy, the 15-year-old that he's basically keeping there against his will, witnessed a murder, and he jumped overboard and swam to shore. Once he was gone, he went to the police and told them everything, that he had been sexually assaulted by Panzram, that he saw him murder somebody. So an alert went out, and they were looking for Captain John O'Leary. I should say that that's how this kid knew him. And on June 29th, O'Leary was arrested in Nyack, New York. He was tried, but he escaped from jail.
Wow.
Well, I should say...
Shock. I'm so shocked.
I should say he didn't exactly escape. What he did was he conned his lawyer into paying for his bail, claiming he had a boat, which he did, and he would use that boat as collateral. So this lawyer set the whole thing up. So once he was out, he skipped bail, and the boat was then confiscated by the government. So in a weird way, it's another escape that he pulled off.
Yeah, it is.
It's so fucked up. On August 26th, he was then arrested in Larchmont, New York, after breaking into a train depot. 3 days later, he was cleared as a suspect in a stabbing of someone else that he'd actually done. So they thought he was the guy, which he was, but after a whole thing, he was cleared of that, which is so fucked up.
Yeah, it is.
He was then sentenced to 5 years imprisonment for the break-in, and while in county jail, he confessed to the alias of Jeff Baldwin and that he wanted to go to Oregon to serve his time for the murder of the warden there, Minto. After first being imprisoned in Sing Sing prison in October, Panzram was then imprisoned in Clinton prison, but while he was there, he tried to escape but ended up getting hurt to the point where he injured his spine and broke his ankles.
Oh.
So old age is kind of catching up to him a little bit. I mean, he's not that old, but old. He's in his 40s, I think.
But he's no longer invincible.
Yeah, he's not young and, invincible, exactly. Amazingly, he was discharged in July of 1928. And he allegedly committed another murder that summer in Baltimore, Maryland. On October 30th, 1928, he was arrested in Baltimore for a Washington, D.C. burglary where he stole a radio and some jewelry from the home of a dentist, which is just,
again with the radio.
It's so weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 3 men were also arrested as accomplices, and most of the jewelry was recovered, although apparently the radio wasn't. Panzram gave his correct name, but he lied, claiming he was 41 and from Nevada. During his
so really, he's just making it impossible to track down anyway.
It's so funny. During his interrogation, he confessed to killing 3 young boys earlier that month, one in Salem, one in Connecticut, and one in Philadelphia. His confession of killing the boy at Pier 28 on League Island near Philadelphia was confirmed. Boston police were unable to corroborate his other confession, and he also claimed to kill a boy in Charlestown, Massachusetts. Panzram later wrote that he contemplated mass murders and other acts of mayhem. One idea he had was poisoning the New York City water supply with arsenic or destroying a British ship in New York Harbor to provoke a war between the U.S. and Britain.
Oh, my God.
Could you imagine if one person could actually do that?
That would be insane.
That'd be literally insane.
It'd be crazy. So, in light of his extensive criminal record, Panzram was sentenced to 25 years to life for that final crime. Upon arriving at Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, identified as inmate 31614, he warned the warden, quote, "I'll kill the first man that bothers me," unquote.
Woof.
Which is just fucking ballsy. Because he was considered too psychotic, he was assigned to work alone in the prison laundry room, where the foreman, Robert Warnke, was known to bully and harass other prisoners that worked under him.
Well, that's going to turn out bad for him.
Warnke soon antagonized Panzram, and despite the latter repeatedly warning him to back off, On June 20th, 1929, Panzram beat Warnke to death with an iron bar.
Oh.
Yep.
Well,
he did
shock.
say he was going to do it.
He did, and people tell you who you are, you gotta believe them.
Right? He was convicted and sentenced to death. He refused to allow any appeals. He was like, nope, we're done doing this.
He's like, nah, I'm tired.
Yeah, like, we're done. I'm tired of fighting you fuckers, right?
Fair enough, dude.
In response to...
See yourself out.
In response to offers from death penalty opponents and human rights activists to intervene, he wrote, quote, "The only thanks you and your kind will ever get from me for your efforts on my behalf is that I wish that you all had one neck and that I had my hands on it," unquote.
Wow.
This guy's got some lines for real.
This is the most angry motherfucker ever.
Yes.
While on death row, Panzram was befriended by an officer named Henry Philip Lesser, who gave him money to buy cigarettes. Panzram was so astonished by these little acts of kindness that after Lesser provided him with writing materials, Panzram wrote a detailed summary of his crimes and nihilistic philosophy while awaiting execution. Panzram explicitly denied having any remorse for his actions, and Panzram was hanged on September 5th, 1930. And as officers attempted to place the customary black hood over his head, Panzram spat in the executioner's face. When asked if he had any last words, Panzram responded, "Yes, hurry it up, you Hoosier bastard. I could kill a dozen men while you're screwing around," unquote.
Wow.
Woof.
Going out with a bang there.
That's fucking awesome. Let's be honest. So, former prisoner guard Henry Lesser preserved Panzram's letters and autobiographical manuscript, and he spent the next 4 decades trying to get that material published. Writers Thomas E. Gaddis and Joe Long co-wrote a book called Killer, A Journal of Murder in 1970, and they consulted with Lesser, who let them draw from Panzram's manuscript for their work. In 1980, Lesser donated Panzram's materials to the San Diego State University, where they are still housed to this day as the Carl Panzram Papers in the Malcolm A. Love Library. And that is the case of Carl Panzram.
Wow. That is really fucking crazy.
This dude, seriously, like, that would be like if, to me, it's like the Hulk. He just never stopped raging.
Yeah. What a crazy man, but truly a lot of suffering that put him in that place.
Yeah, he was.
I'm surprised he didn't try to escape from the death penalty.
You know, I think at that point he was so old. After breaking your ankles trying to break out of one place, I think you're going to stop trying. Just saying.
That's fair.
He was a narcissist enough to think that he could do it, I'm sure.
I just think he was tired of the fight, and that's why he started writing his story. Now, what I want to know is, what did he do in these other countries that are kind of glossed over in his history? Did he kill people in Panama, in Chile, and all these other places he went? He may have.
He had to.
Yeah.
He must have.
You know, like, I mean, he fucking burned down an oil rig in Angola before assaulting children. And I can't.
Yeah, he was definitely killing people.
And I can't even imagine. First off, I can't imagine being a parent that would sell one of my children. Just saying.
Yeah, that was deeply horrific.
But then having this big hulking man come back and be like, "I think you lied to me." I can't even imagine the fear. And keep in mind, this comes from his autobiography, so it may not be 100% true. He may never have paid that family. He could. Who knows what he actually did? Because this is all his account.
Right.
I
can only, like, my only hope is that he's like grandstanding and like he didn't do this much stuff, and then maybe he's trying to make him sound more badass than he was.
Well, there's a part of me that thinks maybe some of it, but it's in a lot of ways it's too precise. I don't really think he exaggerated a lot of it.
Yeah,
he's more credible than
fair.
most. Yeah, he's more credible than most, which is sad. You know, the fact that you're calling a serial killer credible.
Right.
You know. But yeah. So on that note, welcome back from our hiatus, everybody. Thank you for
yeah.
We're hitting you hard this week.
Yeah, we got some more cool stuff lined up. We thank you for being patient with us for our taking a week off. We do appreciate that. And we will see you again soon. So once again, I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.